My name is Louise Dente, and I welcome you to yet another edition of Cultural Caravan on location. We're here at the beautiful state-of-the-art Black Spectrum Theater Company here in Jamaica Queens. And we're joined by the CEO and founder, Mr. Carl Clay. Welcome to Cultural Caravan.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
This year marks the 49th season of Black Spectrum. And basically, when you reflect over the years of Black culture, let's first go back to the beginning. What inspired you to decide to go into theater?
Well, my beginning, was an attempt to write a play, and I had been inspired by a play that I saw that one of my best friends was in up in Vermont that summer. And this is going back into the late 60s. And, it inspired me so much that, when they brought this show down and they brought it to Clark Center for the Performing Arts, which was on 50th Street and 8th Avenue, where it used to be, the YMCA, Clark Center was inside the YMCA there. When I actually saw the production, I was just blown away. And it kind of clicked with some things that I had been trying to write myself. So, it really started there, and this idea of being able to take things that you've read about or experienced or saw in your surroundings and put it into a play form of something entertaining and interesting.
How did the energy of the Black Power movement and really inspire you to really form this theater?
Well, I was inspired by the things that I was looking at on television. There were daily news reports of people being denied the vote in the South, people having water hoses put on them, and all of those images were still floating around in my head. But more importantly, I think the idea that there was a resurgence of Black pride and a love of self, and those things kind of inspired me in a different way than what I was actually seeing being done. There was a lot of, stick it to the man, hate whitey, those kinds of images were out there. And I was doing a lot of reading, and I was feeling something different. And that difference is that I wanted to focus in on what love meant from our own perspective. How do we deal with each other as a people? So I wasn't really concerned about, how things were being done to us, but more our reaction to each other and how we responded, if that makes sense.
Talk to us about the evolution from your perspective of Black theater, from the time when you started in the 70s till now. When
the theater first started, when we were just a fledgling group of actors looking for a place to rehearse and working on the shows that we were doing, Black Love and so forth, what I saw was a lot of great performances and energy and a lot of creative talent. People were discovering themselves, and that discovery just led to some incredible work. It must have been almost 20 different theater companies in New York City at that time. And each one had their own perspective and choices of productions that they would do. But it was all very rich, and just very powerful. But it was always about how our Black folks were doing in America in general. You look at the beginnings of the New Federal Theater, or Hazel Bryant, Loretta Lenoir, who had a theater that pulled a lot of energy from her work on Broadway. Ernie McClintock, these were some of I call them the great titans of black theater and its beginnings. And of course, there's no discussion about black theater that you can have without talking about Douglas Turner Ward and his initial play that really started a lot of people thinking, which was Day of Absence. So there was just a lot of thought about we as a people, you know, and our reaction to people's reaction to us, and our discovery of self. So, you know, I think over the years, some of that emphasis has changed somewhat. I think there's been an attempt to become a reflection of what's going on in the American theater in general. People have wanted to have a stronger voice in the overall American theater scene. You can compare it somewhat to what happened with the Black Baseball League. You know, there was a time when, because we were locked out of Broadway or locked out of the major theaters, we started to create things on our own. And then eventually, a few people got chosen from the Jackie Robinsons or the Roy Campanellas to participate in the American Baseball League. Things started to change. People start saying, well, you know, it's wonderful to be a part of the African American theater experience, but you know, I want to be on Broadway, and that's what I want to do. And ultimately, we ended up taking shows to Broadway. Don't Bother Me, I Can't Cope, you know, or Raisin in the Sun, of course, Raisin in the Sun being an initial success story, because there was a lot of plays before then that goes back all the way to the 30s. But I'd say Raisin in the Sun really brought out a new surgence of the desire to participate on Broadway and become major players in the American theater scene. So now you had two tracks of things going on. People who, you know, came out of the African American theater experience and who still wanted to be in the broader, you know, American theater experience. And I think that's the way things have kind of stayed for a while. You know, you have people who've never left the, you know, the black theater, you know, environment, and then there are people who've come out of it and come back to it, or crisscross back and forth very, very easily. The mission of Black Spectrum Theater became a little different because we always saw our development as an attempt to take those issues and those events that have affected the African American community and institutionalize a place where we could talk about those things ongoing. So we didn't see Broadway as a sellout. We just saw our theater as kind of like, just like you find a church on a corner in an African American theater, or you might find a liquor store, or you might find, you know, a supermarket. We wanted to say, you should be able to find a theater on the corner that talks about what's going on in the area or what's going on a national basis, and interpret it, if you will, kind of be the 411 on what's going on in our community.
What would you say accounts for the reduction of strong black theaters here in New York? And what are some of the strategies that you and others are doing to ensure that people support the rich theater tradition that's here? Well,
you know, I think the idea of black theater is, I think the answer is in the wording, black theater. If you're going to survive as an African American institution, you have to really embrace the community, and the community has to embrace you. While we rely upon public funding to a great extent, we've also relied upon the support of the community to a great extent, and we've tried to come up with different, I guess you can say, in a nonprofit context, entrepreneurial activities that are going to help to support the theater. I think over time, a lot of theaters have in some cases gone out of business literally because either they completely relied upon foundation funding, and those early theaters in the African American theater experience, I think, greatly relied upon foundation support. And when that money gets pulled back and they don't have a base of people supporting them, then they have no other choice but to close their doors. We still rely upon foundation and public support, but we don't just wait for that. We've come up with a lot of strategies over the years to try to make sure that that support that we do get is matched with real community support. And it's a struggle, it's not easy, for a number of reasons, from the financial means of the community to just the cost of rent and location and real estate and all those kinds of things. So if you look around the country in New York real estate is going up, 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 up. A lot of businesses go out of business primarily because they can't pay the rent. We've been blessed to have a relationship with the New York City Parks Department and Southern Queens Park Association that has allowed us to operate out of the Roy Wilkins Park facility. And it's a give and take. There are things that we do and we provide for the community in exchange for the support here in this facility. But it has not been an easy process. Nevertheless, we've managed to keep it happening for 49 years. So there's been a lot of trials and tribulations and so forth,
When and why and how did that evolve from it being just straight theater to now a community cultural center?
Well, the idea of creating a community theater has always been there. I don't know we were able to execute all the things that we wanted to do because of the funding, very frankly. However, as the years went on, it was going back to our roots. I mean, in my initial research and desire to write and direct and be involved in this wonderful experience to create theater, I looked at some of the other theaters that were in existence back in the day, the Free Southern Theater, even a group like San Francisco Mime Company, and looked at how, in fact, they would go out to people, into the communities, and they were literally attached to the community itself. So it meant just as they did things for the community was doing things for them. It also meant that you can't just be a theater. I like to believe that when African American theaters open up, they're not just theaters. They're meeting places. They're places where people come and gather and put on events for other activities that are important to the community, whether a group comes in here and raises funds because they want to get respiratory apparatuses for people suffering from asthma. So it's really looking at our community and what they need and being there for them. And so theater's one means of doing that. It's what we do, that's our profession, but it also means expanding what it is that the community wants. So we look at theater as our main thing, so to speak, but we also recognize that the community wants to see comedy shows, and they want to see, they want to see fashion shows, and they want to see all these other kinds of things. So we try to give it a mix, and keep in mind that that's all necessary to create what I believe from the beginning was a spectrum. And a spectrum is a wide range of frequencies or wavelengths, if you look it up in a dictionary, and I've always believed that's what spectrum is. And so that's why we do these different kinds of events, and that's why we try to go after different audiences, whether they're children, teens, or adults, or or other populations that exist within our community. So, I mean, that's been part of our plan.
Now let's talk about the season. You have a real power-packed season of events. I mean, starting in this past fall, you had the great Vivica Fox stage star discussion talking about her life, her work, and her new book. You've had comedians here, so it's all star-studded comedy shows. And you have an exciting 2019 season coming up, and which begins with the legendary Martha Reeves and of the Vandellas. Tell us about some of the things that are happening this coming year, this 2019, that people really need to know about.
Our season is normally between 2 years, so we have a 2018-19 season, so we've already done half the season, and that's the time in which we presented Vivica Fox. So we're excited about 2019. We really are, because as you mentioned, we have Martha Reeves, who's of Martha Reeves and the Vandellas fame. We have a production of, and by the way, she's part of our speakers series that we do here. We also have the Friendship Express, and it's a play for children. As you know, every year we do a children's series. And this year, last year we did The Magic Crown, which was written by Bob Lohr. This year we're doing The Friendship Express, and it is a play that I wrote. And it's geared for children, daycare up to about the 3rd grade. I was always intrigued by the idea of people not really understanding the different kinds of friendships you can have. And I think for young people, it's important for them to know, the difference between an acquaintance and a best friend, and a fair weather friend versus a buddy or whatever. So, that was important. So that's a play that we're doing. It's a musical play. The music is by Derek Galloway, and it's being directed by Harlan Penn. And that's going to run here the 5th of February through the 9th of February. Then we have a fabulous Ayanna Gregory, who's the daughter of Dick Gregory. She was here last year, and she does an incredible production. It's a play that chronicles her life living with and growing up under the tutelage of her father and mother, and then it goes into some of the issues that plagued their family in growing up, and it's really an eye-opener about kind of like the behind the scenes of a famous civil rights activist, and she sings. It's just a wonderful, wonderful show that we urge everybody to come see. And then there's a new film. This year I have a couple of things going on myself. It's called Soup. And that film it's a 1-hour film, and it is a film geared for middle school and up. And it deals with the lives of teens and their choices that they make around the difference between street life and staying in school. So we're really excited about this film, and we're looking forward to it. We are in the process now of doing the final editing on the film itself. And of course, we have Cynthia St. James. Many of you know her from her work designing the stamp for Kwanzaa, working with Steve Harvey on his show, and she's going to be doing a paint and sip. So that's what's happening in February. We have The Intruders for Mother's Day. We have Leon, who works with a group called Leon and the Peoples, and it is just an exciting time for us as we come to on the edge of our 50th anniversary, which we're now in serious planning for.
Now, when you talk about 50 years, I mean, that's a long time. And just reflecting on 50 years of theater, 50 years of really seeing this from 1970 to now, did you envision that that the theater would evolve to this level? And if so, where do you see it going from here?
As they say, time flies when you're having fun. And yeah, 50 years is a long time. I never planned that the theater would, be around 50 years. That was not a goal or a mission. But I think, and this is important for anybody who's starting an organization or is involved with an organization, that they understand that you take it a day at a time, and you set your mission on accomplishing your goals. And as you accomplish these goals, you form new goals. Ultimately, you start with some basic energy and around some things that you'd like to see. And I think that's what we've done here. A lot of people say, well, how could you stay with a theater this long, this, that, and the other? And I always say that every time I thought of a new area that I wanted to investigate or do, as opposed to stopping and saying, well, let me run off and do this or run off and do that, I just said, let's incorporate it into the context of Black Spectrum Theater and let's continue on. So a good example of that is our summer theater camp. I tried it 1 year, and it was like, it's just more work. And at some point, you got to take a break. But Ms. Rollins said, you know what, let me handle a summer theater camp, and let's see what we can do with it. And so I helped in its process. She was about to start a summer theater camp on her own. And I said, one of the things that happens with institutions and community groups is everybody's kind of doing their own thing. And I reminded her that I never call this theater the Carl Clay Theater. It's called Black Spectrum Theater. So it became an umbrella for a lot of things to occur. And so she stayed, and she's been with the theater a long time. But it's an example of how we can work together to make something bigger than ourselves. And so that's what theater, Black Spectrum, has become, something bigger than me, bigger than any one individual in this institution. And so, so we continue on. What do I want to see for the future? There's just so many different areas that I feel that can fit under this umbrella we call Black Spectrum Theater. And there's so many incredible things that are happening in technology and in science and in the arts and the amalgamation of the two. I still have a whole host of things where I'd love for this theater to go. And I continue to be proud of our past and excited about the future.
Well, I couldn't have said it better. Carl, I just want to first of all say the Black Spectrum Theater Company was really part of my early development as an artist, and certainly respect the work that you and your stellar team of artists and craftspeople do to really work magic, that every time someone comes into this theater, they're taken on a journey through African and African American history. So I just want to say on behalf of Cultural Caravan, we really salute the work that you've done in terms of keeping our culture there front and center in the spotlight, as we say, and certainly making it possible for the next generation of artists and artisans to learn and to develop their craft. For those who are interested in finding out more about the wonderful series of programming that you have, as well as finding out more about how they can get involved, can you give us some contact information?
Sure. You can reach us at 718-723-1800, or you can go to our website at www.blackspectrum.net. We're located in the Roy Wilkins Park at 177th Street and Baisley Boulevard. Our mailing address is 177-01 Baisley Boulevard, Jamaica, Queens, 11434. Or if you hit on some drums loud enough somewhere in this great city, we can hear you and we can respond to you through the drums.
Well, on that note, again, we want to thank you so much for joining us. And certainly, as we move to your 50th anniversary, we will certainly be sharing with our audience some of the wonderful works that you have coming up. But until next time, Louise Dente, I would like to say thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for visiting us out here at Black Spectrum Theater. Thank you for your support. Cultural Caravan has had its own great history, and so we salute you. We just invite everybody to come out and be a part of what we're doing here at Black Spectrum Theater.
Black Spectrum Theater presents March 9th, the legendary Dr. Cynthia St. James. Her wisdom-filled afternoon of good conversation, savory wine, and hosted by this legendary, renowned, multicultural visual artist, author, designer, illustrator, will discussing how she balances her multifaceted career. March 9th. For details, 718-723-1800 or www.blackspectrum.net.